name's Hazel Clark and I'm an APPI trained Pilates instructor, and I'm also a therapist at Mountain Massage Company in the Lake District in Cumbria in the UK. I have got an intermediate with a few advanced level exercises in this class for you today. It's not really suitable if you are a beginner or if you have an injury or if you're experiencing a pain episode at the moment. So maybe go back and have a look at some of our other videos, or we would always recommend seeing someone in person if you are experiencing pain at the moment. So this is definitely for people that have done a few Pilates classes before and are a bit more confident with their movement. I'm going to start in standing, and we're just going to go for a little bit of our chest stretch today. So nice and easy to start with. So although we will be going into some more advanced moves today, or some more intermediate moves, it's always nice to just take the time to just see how the body's feeling and just prepare for what's ahead. So this seems like a nice easy exercise, doesn't it? There's a couple of things to think of. So as the arms go up and away, depending on our back mobility and our shoulder mobility, there's a couple of things that might be happening. As the arms come up, you may feel that the chest is kind of wanting to rise. And at the moment, we want to see if we can keep that rib cage nice and soft and heavy, so kind of keeping the breastbone down as the arms go up. And what you should experience is if you keep the sternum and the breastbone down, you should find that you get a bit of a stretch through the lats, through the side of the body there. So I've got my thumbs facing backwards. You could have your palms coming out to the side if that's a bit more comfortable with your shoulders. And as we're doing this, let's just think of our little checklist. So we want the back of the neck nice and long, so the chin's just gently tucked. And we want to think of keeping the shoulders down, so even though the arms are coming up, let's see if we can tuck those shoulder blades down towards our back pockets. And let's just breathe out. Just go through one more. And we're going to take this into a little bit of a calf raise now. So let's keep the arms up, the rib cage down, and let's see if we can reach up by floating the heels off the floor and lowering back down. So this is a slightly modified calf raise. By having the arms up, we're working the core a little bit harder. It's slightly harder to stabilise. You can put the arms down at any point. I've got a low ceiling here, so I'm actually getting a little bit of assistance. But getting another point of contact as my arms come up there. So the reason that we're starting with the arms up is we're about to take this into our toy soldier. So the next time that you're up, let's stay up, and we're going to drop one heel and one arm. And then we're going to float to the other side. So the heel goes down and the arm goes down. So with this one, it's basically our normal walking action, but we're doing it with a straight arm. So with this one, I want you to think of there being that little moment in the middle where you are raised up. So that little snapshot of a moment where both heels are floating up off the floor. We want to think about keeping those heels pressing together. So if you do struggle with that, you can place your little ball between, or your cushion between your legs, and try it that way. And that is going to make the muscles on the inside of your feet and your lower legs work a little bit harder. Let's just do one more on each side. I'm actually finding it harder with the ball between my legs. There we go. Last one. Okay, relax those heels down. You can keep that little ball or cushion there for a moment if you want. We're going to just go in for our spine twist. So with our spine twist, you can either cross the hands out to the side here, Or if you know you struggle with your neck control, I saw this, James did this as quite a nice modification the other day. So he kind of made this diamond shape with his hands and popped his fingers under his chin and his thumb under his breastbone. And then when you go for your spine twist, it kind of makes you keep your face, your nose and your chin in line with your breastbone, in line with your sternum. So what tends to happen sometimes when we do this exercise is people really crane with the neck, but there's not actually that much movement that occurs with the spine. And obviously it's spine twist, it's kind of the aim of the game here. So what we're wanting to do really with this exercise is keep the hips face forward. So it doesn't really matter where the hands are, they could be out in front. But we want to rotate away from the pelvis. So we're trying to sort of almost take our ribcage away from our hips slightly, then back to centre and then out to the other side. Think about being lovely and long and tall through the spine in this one. So keep that pelvis facing forward. We talk about those little imaginary lights, like little headlamps coming out the front of the pelvis and keeping those fixed forward on a fixed position. Again, the shoulders stay down and the face kind of stays in line over the body. And if you're not sure, you could try that little hand placement. So I'm definitely stiffer to one side than the other. And if we're adding the breathing in, we're actually going to breathe out as we twist out. We're going to breathe in to come back to centre. Okay, let's just do one more. Okay, now those legs have had a little rest. We're going to go for our foot series. So let's just work into this. First of all, let's go for a calf raise. And maybe this is where you're at today with your balance. So let's just float the heels off the floor. And the arms are going to just come up into a bit of a front raise, but again, shoulders stay back and down. So we should probably talk a little bit about pelvic floor and lower tummy, although hopefully with being a little bit more sort of intermediate, you've done quite a bit of Pilates up to now, so we sort of know what we're doing there, but let's just talk about it just in case. So pelvic floor, lower tummy, the easiest way to do it, so for women, if we think about the feeling of tightening around back passage as if you need to stop yourself from passing gas, and then pulling up around front passage, that kind of effectively switches on like a lot of the muscles down below in our pelvis. Guys, if you think, so for male pelvic floor, guys, if you think more about retracting up, and that is going to switch on your pelvic floor a little bit better. Okay. All right, so we better take this up a notch, haven't we? I did promise a few more sort of intermediate and advanced exercises here. I'm keeping this ball between my ankles because I'm actually finding it tougher than without, so I think I need it. Okay, so with moving on, we're going to float everything up. We're going to stay with those heels raised. Let's see how we do. Let's see how I do. And then we're going to lower that bottom back and down into a little bit of a squat. Then we're going to float the heels down, float the arms down and drive back up. So let's float everything up. We're going to lower that bottom down, keep the heels up, float everything down and stand back up. Let's go for one more. Float everything back up, heels up, raise, arms raised, bottom sits back and down. Heels lower, hands lower, driving back up. Okay, I think I'm going to pop that to one side now. One more little bit, just to wake up the shoulders. So, Let's come into a little bit of our corkscrew. So with our corkscrew, this is just thinking about moving those wonderful scapulars, moving the shoulders. So the hands come to the back of the head. We're going to squeeze the shoulder blades up. We're going to shrug the shoulders up towards the ears. We're going to lower the shoulders away from the ears, and then we're going to reach the arms out to the side and back down. So let's circle the arms out. Think of those scapulars winging out to the side. The hands come to the back of the head. Think about the shoulders reaching up towards the ears. And then we're going to lengthen the shoulders all the way, glide them down the back of the ribcage and reach the arms back out to the side. Let's just do one more. Controlling that shrug up, reaching those shoulder blades down, gliding them down. Keep them fixed as the arms come back around to the side. Amazing. So, we're going to come into some roll downs now. So I will get a slight angle for you, just to the shape of my room. So with our roll down, I will just demo one from this angle so that I'm a bit more straight onto you, and then I'll turn myself around. So we're going to go for our roll downs, but we're going to end up going into our cat and then into our plank. Just still sort of warming into the main part of the class now. With our roll down, I want you to think about growing lovely and tall first. So imagine that helium balloon or piece of string coming out of the top of your head and drawing you up towards the ceiling. Kind of think about space being created all the way through the spine. Then we're going to slide the chin down to the throat. The eye gaze comes down to the floor. Allow those shoulders to round forward. And think about scooping the belly in as we start to segmentally roll down through the spine. Keep that tummy scooped in. So I talk about imagining that you're rolling like down over the other side of a fence and you don't want to touch that fence. You can bend the knees as much as you need to. So you may notice with me that my legs look a little bit bent all the time, and that's because I kind of can't fully lock out my knees. I guess I've got very good tight hamstrings. It's just the way that my body is. Same with my elbows, so my arms don't ever, relax the head there. I've got my neck craned a little bit. And then we're going to roll back up. Sorry, I was just doing a few little heel paddles there, and I didn't cue that. That was a bit out of me, wasn't it? Let's do that again, and I'll cue that this time. I obviously just felt like I needed that for my hamstrings, so let's just add that in before we go into our cat stretch. So grow lovely and tall. Think about that length between the tailbone and the top of the head, and then chin comes to throat, eye gaze comes down towards the floor. The head becomes heavy, the shoulders round forward. Think bone by bone, vertebrae by vertebrae. We talk about that sort of imaginary string of beads, bead by bead of that imaginary string of beads. Bend the knees as much as you need to. So this time, when we're down there, we're going to think about bending the knees as much as we need to in order to connect to the floor. And then we're just going to paddle the heels a little bit. So I obviously just instinctively needed that today. So we will add that in as part of the class. So my hamstrings is obviously super, super tight. Okay. And then we're going to come back up, and then we'll take it into our cat. So as we come back up, scoop the belly in, the tailbone comes down towards the floor. We restack that pelvis and we restack that spine on top until we're standing lovely and tall and proud. Okay, on this next one, we're going to end up coming down onto the floor for a cat stretch. So, same thing, roll lovely and tall. Chin comes to sort of throat to chest. We close down the front of the body. We start to roll down as if we're rolling down the other side of that imaginary fence. The tailbone starts to stick up towards the floor. We bend the knees as much as we need to now, and we start to come down onto our mat. So we're just going to come down into our cat stretch first of all. So we're finding that tabletop position. And we're just going to round out into that cat stretch. So I like to think of it as sort of an imaginary tail. We're tucking that tail between our legs. The shoulder blades are separating at the back of the body, and I'm looking down towards my knees. So I'm sucking my tummy up away from the floor. And then, keeping those tummy muscles switched on, we control the chest and the belly to dip towards the floor. And now I'm looking towards the skirting board in front of me. The shoulders are shoulder blades are gliding together as if I want to squeeze something between them, and the tailbone is sticking up into the air. And I'm just going to do 1 or 2 more in this position, just because it feels lovely. Okay, on this next one, I'm going to round the spine. Let's tuck the toes. We're going to push the hips up behind us. I'm just going to walk my feet in slightly so I don't end up walking out of camera shot. Let's walk the hands back towards the feet, and we're going to restack the spine. So pulling in around those bottom muscles. So think about your sitting bones connecting together like magnets. The tailbone comes back down towards the floor. We restack the pelvis. And we restack the spine and grow tall. So taking it up a notch now, we're going to come into our walkout, into our plank. So with this one, we're going to roll down. Bone by bone, don't rush trying to get there. And this time we're going to walk out. So we're trying to keep, and try to avoid, so I just nearly went to do it, try to avoid kind of coming and craning and looking forward. Keep the chin tucked as if we've got that little imaginary ball under our chin. So we're trying to walk our hands forward. Let's go once, twice, and 3 times until we're fully extended out into that plank. So shoulder blades are back away from the ears. Tummy's tucked, toes tucked just ever so slightly. Make sure the hips don't drop too much. Nice strong crowd, chin is tucked. Let's take an in-breath here. Breathe it out. You're going to walk back. So let's think about sending the hips straight out behind us in a straight line, and we're going to have to connect into the tummy in order to stop the sway from side to side. As we come back up again, think about the sitting bones drawing together, the tail tucking down towards the floor. We restack that pelvis, we restack the spine. Let's go for 1 more, and we're going to end up down onto the floor. So let's take eye gaze down, let's roll it down segmentally. You should be starting to feel hopefully a little bit warmer now. Keep the chin tucked so we don't crane the neck. And we're going to walk forward in that straight line. Imagine you're sort of trapped in a little narrow corridor and you don't want your hips to sway from side to side. Hold that plank, chin tucked, tummy tucked, legs straight, arms straight. For a breath in, another breath out. And then we're going to drop the knees, untuck the toes, and if you want to, you can push back into a quick shell pose. And release the wrists. Okay, so coming into our swing in 4-point kneeling. So with this one, we're going to think about keeping the back in a nice sort of tabletop position. So we want to think about being in that sort of halfway point in between our kind of cat stretch. And we want to think about staying nice and solid there. So I'm just going to move that because I may use that in a moment. Let's send one leg and one arm away. So we're going to have to connect strongly from our stabilising arm and leg. Feel that connection up through the arm, across the shoulder, across the body, down into the opposite hip. Let's send the arm and the hand long. Think about long rather than high. If we try to lift too high, that's when we're going to get that back from tipping side to side. And it's the transition in the middle that you want to be a little bit mindful of. So quite often it's this bit in the middle where we sort of get a sway. So I want you to think about a lovely soft transition. We like to talk about imagining that we've got that tray of drinks resting across our back, and we don't want them to sort of tip from side to side, or a spirit level across our lower back. Chin is tucked, the back of the neck is nice and long. Let's go for it. One more on each side. And then walking the hands up towards the knees, we're going to come into a little bit of mermaid in high kneeling. So I'm just going to use the squishy ball here just because it's a little bit nice sort of to have that, something to add that proprioception to help us feel the stretch. Let's bring one arm up and we're going to slide the other arm down. So push the ball away, reach up, and we're going to come into that little bit of a side bend. So my knees are just ever so slightly apart. We're going to come back up. Let's stay on the same side. So I'm kind of trying to lean away from the hips and the pelvis. So by being in this kneeling position, it's easier to sort of fix that pelvis. So when I'm coming into this side bend, I'm sort of bending away from my pelvis and I'm getting a lovely, very strong, means I'm very tight, stretch down this left side here. This is my left side. Okay. Just enjoy this little moment. And then we're just going to come over to the other side. So, shoulders down. One arm up, the other arm presses down, presses that ball away, and we're reaching over. So, yep. I'm different on this side, but still tight. So I'm feeling it now much more actually round through the front of my hip, into my hip flexor on this side. Lovely. Okay, so I'm going to come into a bit of prone, so that's laying on up front. So for this one, I actually think I will come and lay this direction. So I know I've got my head pad up at that end, but I think you might be able to see me a bit better if I go the other way. So I'm going to bring that ball with us, so you don't have to have it at all. I'll show you with and without. So I'll just put it to one side for the moment. Okay, we're going to come into a little bit of our Cobra first of all. So with this position, if you're very curvy in your lower back, so if you're very lordotic, if you've got a big curve here, you can put a cushion under your hips, okay? So with our Cobra, we're going to start with our arms kind of out in a diamond shape. So it's a bit like if you were going through the kind of the sort of the airport scanners, we have our arms kind of up above. So the elbows are out, pointing out to the side in a diamond shape. And we're just going to come into a little baby Cobra first of all. So shoulders slide back and down. We connect through the back of the body, tummy switched on, we're pulling that belly ever so slightly away from the floor. Okay, we're going to press up through the forearms and the elbows are going to draw together. And just first of all, I'm going to just keep the elbows on the floor and I'm looking forward. So I'm just thinking about being long through the back of the neck, the chin is tucked, so I'm looking forward sort of roughly to about where my fingers are here. And then my elbows are coming back out to the side and I'm lowering myself down. So think about sort of making a bit of a ski slope with your back. So chin stays tucked. I'm very gently lengthening through that tailbone and sucking my belly ever so slightly away from the floor here, and to keep the lower back long. Okay, I'm pressing through my forearms, so I'm connecting my forearms and my hands into the floor, and I'm drawing myself back and up. So long through the back of the neck, the chin is tucked and the elbows draw together. And then I'm allowing those elbows to go back out to the side into that diamond shape. Okay, if you want to, come a little bit higher. So with this one, again, the elbows draw together, the shoulder blades suck back and down, we lengthen through the tailbone, but we can then sort of lift off and float off the floor. So my hands are connected to the floor. I'm still thinking about that length in the tailbone, so I want to sort of, don't want to get too sort of dippy, in the lower back here, so we want to flatten the lower back out a little bit, sucking the belly away, and then drawing back down. And you can breathe in actually with this one, so you can breathe in. Gonna go for a couple more. Shoulders back and down, connect them back down to your back pockets. My feet are probably just gently apart, about pelvis width or mat width apart. Wonderful spine extension stretch. Oh, I'm going to do a couple more because this feels great. Chin stays tucked. And float back down. Lovely. Okay, we're going to go into our breaststroke. So this is where sometimes the object might be quite nice to have, but you don't have to. I'll pop it down my hips to start with. So we're going sort of into a slightly modified breaststroke, and again the legs are just gently apart, thinking of that length in the tailbone. So with our breaststroke, we're going to think about raising up first of all. Your hands come with you if you can. We reach them out long and we're going to sweep them around to our hips. And then think about gliding the fingertips up the body as if you wanted to sort of tickle yourself all the way through. And we're going to sweep around. So if you want to, you could come down in between just for a little bit of a rest there. So with this one, you want to think about keeping the chin tucked and the back of the neck nice and long. We're drawing the belly away from the floor. And we're lengthening through the tailbone. And this is where I quite like to add something in. So we can do a bit of a pass over with the ball. I'm just having to sort of slightly modify this because of my reformers in the way. So this is the Pilates reformer behind me, and I'm just making a figure of 8 with the ball here. Glide the fingertips along the body, reaching out in front, sweeping the arms round. Chin stays tucked, working the back of the body quite strongly here. One more time. Lengthen through the tailbone, pull that tummy in, back down, and then we're just going to tuck the toes. We're going to come back into a shell pose or a child's pose. So think about tucking the elbows into the side, pulling the tummy in. We're going to push up onto our knees, and we're going to push back into a little bit of a shell pose or a child pose. You can either have your knees together or you can have your knees apart. Okay, so we're going to come onto our backs now. Just checking where we were. Yeah, we are going to come onto our backs. Keep your object to one side. So this is where you might want to have a little head cushion as well. I'm just going to put mine over there. I'm going to come into a little bit of a hip twist to begin with. So come over your back. Got something under the back of your head. Just to keep the neck in neutral. You should have that little mouse hole gap under the back of your neck there. And just find your neutral pelvis here, so you've got that little hint of a gap under your lower back, tummy switched on, pelvic floor switched on. Okay, let's think about bringing one leg into our tabletop, deepen that abdominal connection, bring the other leg up into our tabletop. And we're going to go for our hip twist here. So relaxing through the neck and the shoulders, we're going to allow one leg to open out to the side of the room. And then we come back together and the other leg releases out to the side of the room. So the aim with this one is, so this is all about hip control, really, pelvic and hip control. If you were to glance down at your feet, I want you to hide your feet behind your thighs, and my toes were poking up just then. So this is going to help if you keep your feet hidden behind your thighs, so all you see basically is your thigh and your knee. That's going to mean that your hip is kind of gliding quite nicely, so we're not sort of getting a wibbly wobbly kind of jaggedy movement. Because if you see your foot kind of poke out to the side, it just means that the sort of the hip control is a little bit just just a little bit jaggedy at the moment. Obviously you can pop one leg down at any point if you want to, and just make sure we're not getting too grippy in the shoulders and the neck. So just keep nice and loose with the upper body, keep that abdominal connection. Let's go for 2 more on each side. Back to centre. Last pair coming up. And we're just wanting to make sure the pelvis doesn't roll with this one as well. So you want the hip to move, but without the whole body twisting from side to side. So actually, let's just do 1 more on each side. So if you need those fingertips on the front of your pelvis or the ribs to check that your body's not being dragged, then do have a little feel there. Okay, so if you need to, you can pop your feet down and have a little wiggle, but join me back up when you can. We're going to go for our abdominal preparation. So the hands are going to come back to the back of my head here. Just a very, very light touch with the fingertips. The elbows are open wide, the shoulders are back and down. I'm going to keep my legs connected in tabletop, and I'm going to start to draw up. Now I want to have a little look at my feet and my knees, and I'm going to roll back down. So with this one, keep the back of the neck nice and long, the chin stays very gently tucked, and you want to feel this movement coming from your sternum, your kind of the rib cage. So think of like the rib cage gliding down to meet your pelvis. You want to think about connecting the back of the ribs into the floor slightly as we come up and look over. So with this one, it's very easy for people to be here and leading the movement with the front of the neck. So try to keep that neck quiet and soft, and try to think of this movement as happening with these upper abdominals. Lengthen through the back of the neck. Let's go for 4 more. Can you get a millimetre higher? And last 2, I think. Last one. Okay, if you need to take a little break there, please do. Otherwise, we're going to come into a 1-leg stretch. So, I'm going to keep my legs down. So this is a 1-leg stretch level 3, I think. So we're going to reach the foot away about a 45-degree angle. So my head is down, and we're just lengthening away, working those lower abdominals, hip flexors a bit as well. Take a rest if you need to. And if you want to, we could add in an abdo prep. But you don't have to. Let's go. 4 more. Last 3. Last 2. Last 1. And relax back down there. You can hug those knees in towards your chest and just give your back a little rock from side to side. Okay, we've got 1 more. This is your sort of last bit of hard work. It's a modified double leg stretch. So this is where, again, a little prop can come in quite handily as well. So we're going to come into our double leg tabletop again. Let's think about deepening those abdominals. Deepening the pelvic floor and abdominal connection. Let's bring 1 leg into our tabletop. Deepen that abdominal connection. Let's bring the other leg into tabletop. So I'm going to put my ball in between my knees here, and my hands are going to come up towards the ceiling. So this is a double leg stretch. It's a sort of modified level 5 actually. So slightly modified advanced level. Okay. Alright, we're going to try stretching both legs away, come in, take the ball, reach the ball away overhead. So, we're keeping the head down for this one. we're just thinking about passing the ball over. So how do you know whether this is the right level for you? Well, if your back is starting to bow, obviously if you're getting any lower back pain, then this is maybe not the right level for you. So you can just do one leg at a time. Obviously forget the ball at that point. You could put one leg down on the ground at any point as well and just work one side. But as I say, this is a more intermediate advanced level class. So you should be strong enough for this exercise if this is the appropriate one for you. And if it's not, we maybe just need to work through some different movements until we've got the strength and control for this one. So deepen that abdominal connection, let's keep that spine in neutral, and we're going to go four more pass overs. Last 3. I'm counting it when the ball goes over my head. Last 2. Last 1. Bring that ball back in, place the feet down, the ball can go over to one side, somewhere. We're going to bring those feet together and we're just going to go for a lovely hip twist level 2. So the arms can come out to the side, palms up or palms down, doesn't really matter. Allow both knees to glide over to one side. The top foot can ride piggyback on the bottom foot. And peel off the floor as we allow the hips to come over to one side, just to ease off those hip flexors and down the side of the leg. Bring those legs back to centre, allow them to glide over to the opposite side and just enjoy this stretch. So we are going into our cool down now. That was the last bit of hard work. To centre, and we're going to make our way into a sort of a kneeling lunge position. So coming over onto your side or whatever feels best for you. And we're going to come into a nice hip flexor stretch. So from this kind of kneeling position, I'll demo this from a couple of different angles. We're going to step forward with one leg. And you don't have to have your sort of yourself really narrow here because it'll be harder to balance. So walk the foot out to the side a little bit. So imagine you're on like your tram lines or train tracks. And you want to think about that tailbone being nice and heavy. I'm just going to offset myself slightly so you see me from a better angle. So think about that tailbone being nice and heavy. So if you've got very tight hip flexors, just by tucking that imaginary tail between the legs, you may have already given yourself a bit of a hip flexor stretch. If that's not quite enough, keeping that length in the lower back, you can inch yourself forward, but just be mindful that it's very easy to come into this kind of lordotic position here. So I want you to think about lengthening down through that tailbone before you allow yourself to come forward. It's going to restrict your movement, but what you should find is you get that sense of a stretch down through this leg here. If that's not quite enough, you can take a bit of a reach up and over. The other hand just can be anywhere, that's it. You can just take a nice little stretch up and over. You can make this a bit dynamic if you want to as well. So keep that tailbone lengthened. And you want to think of that sense of stretching away and lengthening between your pelvis and your shoulder. Let's go for just one more. And let's swap over. So I'll go straight on to you for this one. So I'm stepping forward. I'm on the kind of in that imaginary train tracks. Tailbone's lengthened. A little bit tighter on this side, so I might not need to come forward very much. So I'm getting quite a big stretch down through this bit. You can probably get a little bit further than I can. And then we're just reaching up and over. So just to make this a little bit dynamic. So it's similar to that mermaid stretch that we did a little while ago, isn't it? But we're just sort of doing this with added hip flexor now. Oh, lovely. Okay. And then both knees together. Place the hands down on the mat. Let's tuck the toes. And we're going to think about coming into our sort of, our roll downs, but we'll be going up first of all. So tuck the toes. We're going to send the hips up towards the ceiling. Connect the heels to the floor. Walk the hands back towards the feet. Think about tucking that tailbone, connecting between your sitting bones. We're going to curl back up. Let's restack that pelvis first of all. And we're going to restack that spine. The shoulders glide back and down, and the head comes up last of all. Let's just take, sort of finishing where we started. We're just going to take a little bit of a corkscrew stretch, and we're just going to glide the hands out to the side, bring the hands to the back of the head. Let's reach those shoulders up, gliding the shoulders up the rib cage. Glide them back down and release the hands. Let's just go again. Gliding the shoulder blades up towards the back of the head, all the way down. And let's just add in a little bit of twist here so the hips stay facing forward. We're going to open the body out towards one side, back to the centre, out towards the other side, back to the centre, release the hands. And we are done. So my name is Hazel Clark. I'm from Mountain Massage Company in Bowness in Cumbria in the UK. Thank you for joining me for this intermediate with a few little advanced level exercises in class this morning. And you can visit our YouTube page for other classes. Thank you.